disintegrationism being the belief that we have nothing that binds us, that effectively we should fall apart. And it seems like the disintegrationists are pretty clearly winning at this point in time.
That's right. That's exactly, as my listeners know, what I suspect. You're much younger than I. How do you psychologically react to the possibility of a dark future for this country?
All I can say is that the fight doesn't stop being worth fighting, even if the future doesn't look good. I'll say there's a couple points of hope. One is other countries have gone through these sort of crises where it seems like they lose their thread and start eating themselves. This actually happened to Israel in the post-Zionist part of its history, probably between Oslo and maybe the mid-2000s. And then it turns out that Israel was sort of jogged back into reality by the fact that there are existential enemies who wanted to destroy it, and suddenly all of Israel, including the left, is center-right. Like, the left just doesn't exist there anymore. Reality has a way of clubbing people back into some semblance of sanity. So there's that possibility, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to go through a real ugly period here. So I'm hopeful that we can either pull ourselves out by our bootstraps by relearning what it was that was supposed to unify us. I mean, the book really isn't just supposed to be me complaining about what's going on in the country. It really is supposed to be a one-stop shop as a sort of prophylactic against what's happening. It's really a re-education in the stuff that's supposed to tie us together, and I'm hopeful that there are some liberals, not leftists, the distinction you always make, Dennis, and frankly, I think I learned it from you, the distinction between left and liberal, that I think there are some liberals out there who still agree with some of the fundamental principles of the book. If they don't make common cause with conservatives, then the country is in for a very, very dark future. I think the possibility of a common cause is still in the offing, but that's going to require a simple mind shift, and it's going to require a lot of people who are liberals to get beyond the simple Trump of it all. So many of them have become obsessed with the idea that Trump is the be-all, end-all in politics. He's the big bang of politics. That they're failing to recognize that whatever you think of Trump is a symptom of the times we live in. He is not the cause.
He certainly is not the cause. Talking about that, what do you foresee, and I don't like to ask predictive questions, but it has to be asked, what do you foresee if the Democrats win the presidency and add to that Congress?
Well, I think that things will get quite ugly quite quickly in a couple of ways. In one way, there will be an alleviation. I think that the media will immediately stop talking about COVID. I think the riots will basically stop. Because I think what we're watching right now is the sort of pressure politics that Democrats brought to bear in the 60s. In the 60s, Democrats across the country, mayors like John Lindsay in New York, people like Marion Barry, they actually pushed the idea that riots were good public policy because you could force law-abiding citizens to do stuff they otherwise wouldn't by essentially threatening them. And so I think that if Democrats take power nationally, then they will have achieved their goal right now, which is getting rid of Trump. I think that you will see people stop talking about COVID because the great lie here is that Trump has completely botched COVID and every place else has done great. So Andrew Cuomo just doesn't exist in this vision of the world. Italy and Spain don't exist. The second wave that's currently happening in France doesn't exist in this vision of the world. So I think the media will have achieved its goal and they will simply allow COVID to sort of fade into the background if Biden is elected. That may be stupid and awful and dishonest, but at least, there'll be some semblance of normalcy that is returned. Where things will get really ugly is in terms of policy. So Democrats are going to completely remake American foreign policy. They're going to cut the military again. They're going to retreat on the world stage from China. They're going to try to sign another nuclear deal with the evil Iranian government. And domestically, I think you're going to watch a serious threat to a wide variety of American rights. Particularly, I'm concerned about religious liberty. It's pretty obvious that a Biden administration would target religious liberty federally and suggest that nonprofit status ought to be removed for churches and synagogues that refuse to abide by social justice activism ranging from same-sex marriage to transgenderism. I think he'll threaten gun rights. I think that there will be a move to curb free speech rights. I think you'll start to see a state and local move by Democrats as more and more judges are appointed to curb free speech by citing diversity and citing anti-discrimination law. I think that you'll see the Democrats radically raise taxes and regulations, which will really hamper any sort of economic recovery in this very dark time. Again, the one piece of optimism I have here is that if American politics shows us one thing, it's that politicians, after winning, tend to believe there's a mandate for their policies, and generally that's not true. Generally, the reason the politicians win is because people don't like the other guy. And so if Biden wins, and if Democrats sweep into Congress, I think they're going to overreach, and I think within 2 years, Republicans will be in charge of Congress again. And the reason I say this is because this is exactly what Barack Obama did in 2008. He overreached with the stimulus package. He overreached with cash for clunkers. He overreached with the bailouts, and then he overreached with Obamacare, and within 2 years, Republicans had retaken the House of Representatives. So I think that there's a pattern to that. I think that Biden is likely to try and interpret a victory for him as a sort of endorsement of a Bernie Sanders platform. I think that's idiotic. I think it's wrong, and I think there will be a backlash to it.
The book that Ben Shapiro has just written, just out, How to Destroy America in 3 Easy Steps, and I'm in the middle of it, and what it does so well, it explains America. I mean, that's really important. I have to say, I think that, like separation of powers, okay, something obviously you mentioned, how many 12th graders can define that term?
I mean, nearly none, I would assume. And more importantly, even if they can define the term, they don't understand why it exists. And what folks have failed to recognize, and Dennis, you've done yeoman's work in trying to remind people of it in books like your own, talking about the American Trinity and basic principles of Americanism, is that the Declaration of the Constitution worked not because in a utilitarian fashion they work because they're founded on truths about human nature. And that is why also they are good, because they're founded on truths about human nature and how to vitiate the sinfulness of human nature as it impacts other people. The point of separation of powers is, of course, as the founders saw it, to curb the excesses of man, because if one person has too much power, men can be men are not angels, men are not devils. This is Federalist 51 by Madison. And so you have to check and balance people so that they aren't able to simply run roughshod over other people. The left believes that human beings are innately malleable. And so if you get rid of capitalism and you put in a new system, great men will come to the fore who are innately incapable of sin, and then they can rule from above without any checks and balances. In fact, checks and balances prevent us from reaching this utopian world. So even if people understand why that checks and balances do exist, they don't understand why it should exist. Increasingly, by the way, this is true even for people on the right. You sort of understand what checks and balances are, but then...
All right, hold on. We're going to want to tell everybody the book. How to Destroy America in 3 Easy Steps. It is up at DennisPrager.com.
At every turn, it seems like there are more unanswered questions and few honest explanations about why so many of our liberties are under attack.
Why are so many bright people teaching me nonsense?
Some of the scenes of violent protests are just amazing. They're irrational evil.
Dennis Prager and Dr. Wayne Grudem confront the toughest social issues we face today, explained through historical, political, and never-before-told personal stories.
More rabbis, priests, and ministers fear the left and fear God.
When you stand before God at the final judgment, what will you say to him about how you voted on abortion laws?
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Now, we are told that the president is bungling the response to the coronavirus pandemic, and that had he been more competent, hey, listen to his advisors, everything would have been a lot better. Well, do you remember the H1N1 virus that the Obama-Biden campaign had to deal with? 2009? Don't ask me why he said this. Honestly, don't ask me. Don't ask me. But this guy is an advisor to the Joe Biden campaign. His name is Ron Klein. And he is explaining how the Obama administration responded to the 2009 swine flu crisis. Now, again, he is a top Biden advisor. His name is Ron Klein. Listen to this.
I was in the White House in 2009, 2010. I was working for Vice President Biden. I wasn't involved directly in the H1N1 response, but I lived through it as a White House staffer. And what I will say about it is a bunch of really talented, really great people working on it, and we did every possible thing wrong.
Whoa. He speaks almost as fast as I do. Slow down. Did you say that the Obama administration was full of very talented people, very smart people that did everything wrong in responding to the H1N1 flu? Did you just say that? You mean like after the epidemic, a Safety Equipment Industry Association recommended that depleted supplies of N95 respirator masks be replenished, but that didn't happen?
And what I will say about it is a bunch of really talented, really great people working on it, and we did every possible thing wrong.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
No author likes to be told what the most important page in line is in their book, but I'll tell you what yours is. Page 85. The next pope must be willing to remove from office bishops whose personal behavior has become a countersign to the gospel. The next pope must be willing to remove from office bishops who teach a doctrine other than that of the Catholic Church. The next pope must be willing to remove bishops whose manifest incompetence in governance has irretrievably damaged their capacity to lead.
Over the last 200 years, the church has regained the capacity to name its own bishops without interference from governments, with a few exceptions. But if you claim the responsibility to choose your own leadership, then you have to own the responsibility to fix mistakes when mistakes get made. You know, I've been saying this since the abuse scandals of 2002 broke out. There comes a point when a man simply loses the capacity not only to govern, but to teach and
All right, my friends, Ben Shapiro, yes, the Ben Shapiro, How to Destroy America in 3 Easy Steps, is his book about the Disintegrationists and the Unionists. That's the way those are his terms for left and right, as it were. Is that correct? Is that fair to say?
I think that's fair. I mean, I would say that there are some people sort of on the alt-right or the radical right who also think that the country is steeped in racism and think that the country should fall apart because of it. So I've tried to eschew the terms left and right here specifically because I think too many liberals don't understand the difference that you always make between liberal and left. And instead, I've used unionists and disintegrationists to hopefully provide a common point to rally around in spite of labels that people tend to misuse.
That's the hope of your book. I got that clearly. That the better angels, as you put it, will prevail. I have a question that you will, I think, surprise you because I know you think I'm bright. So I am going to confess to you ignorance on something so basic to the American founding, and I have to tell you, a lifetime of reading about it, including in your book, and you're clear. I still don't understand natural law.
Okay. So the basic idea of natural law is that discoverable in the human condition are certain laws that you can discern just from the way that nature works. So Aristotle, and mostly Aristotle, but Plato also talks a little bit about the idea of natural laws existing in the universe and the teleology of things. So, for example, Aristotle talks about the difference between good and bad, not lying in a moral distinction between good and bad, but in the usefulness of the proper use of a thing. So, for example, if you see a spoon, a good spoon is a spoon that holds soup. A bad spoon is a spoon that does not hold soup. A good person, says Aristotle, is a person who is capable of reasoning, right? Because a person is made to reason. And so a person who reasons properly is doing something that is good. A person who reasons improperly is doing something that is unfit. In the same way, when you look at the universe and you look at rules that are made for the universe, there are rules that adhere to human nature. Those are natural laws that we work in accordance with. And then there are rules that run against human nature, and those are rules that we do not, that cut against the ability of human beings to operate in accordance with reason. The natural law, according to the ancients, was really about the effectuation of reason in the world, right? That you can look at the world around, you can discern certain rules, that apply. And in the modern world, we tend to think of this as science, right, like gravity. But in the ancient world, they thought of this in terms of certain laws that apply to human nature that, when followed, make life better, and that also are discernible from just the nature of man and the world around him.
So first of all, I want everybody to know why I'm asking it, because this played a real role in the founding. What is it? Nature and nature's God, correct?
Right.
That's in the Declaration of Independence.
Right. So the founders were big believers in the natural law and natural rights that kind of spring there from. Natural law precedes natural rights in philosophy. So Aristotle talks about natural law. He never talks about natural rights. Natural rights are a much later outgrowth. And that really comes when people recognize that natural law means that individuals are sovereign. And so as an aspect of natural law, the way that human beings rationally interact with the world, there are certain rights that adhere to you as a member of society and as an individual. It really becomes clear to people that you need natural rights, not just natural law, because there are a lot of tyrannies that use natural law in order to effectuate tyranny. There are theocracies that say natural law is following the Bible, and therefore you should follow the Bible.
Is natural law morality without theology?
Yes, I think that's fair. Yes, and so the right. Yeah, no, I think that's accurate. And so the addition of rights to that is kind of an interesting amalgam, because morality really doesn't tend to talk about rights very much. And morality is about what you should do. Rights are about what you can do, and they occupy kind of different spaces. The reason that they burst into Western history is really in the aftermath of the 30 Years' War, when a bunch of places that acknowledge morality, but different types of religious morality, say, okay, yeah, but if we're going to live together, we're also going to have to recognize that we have a right to disagree on certain aspects of how we worship, for example. The birth of natural rights really doesn't happen in sort of its full flowering until, for example, Hugo Grotius, who's the first person to use the idea of natural rights, starts talking about this in the 16th century, and then that starts to take on a life of its own, that you have rights as Englishmen, you have rights as citizens.
Let me tell you part of the problem I've had my whole life is that it's an odd name because you can't learn, I don't think you could learn anything about right and wrong from nature.
Right. So this is a struggle that Leo Strauss famously had, sort of reason versus revelation. And I talk about this actually in my last book, Right Side of History. The fact is that what the founders did with that is they said sort of what Maimonides actually says, which is there are certain laws that are sort of common that you see across societies, like don't kill each other. Like that's fairly common across societies, including primitive societies. Now they only apply to members of the tribe. The universalization of that law requires something broader. Right? Usually people say don't murder somebody inside our tribe, but if you go murder the neighbors, that's okay. But the universalization requires something broader, which is why what the founding fathers really did in the story of the West is not just the story of Greece or Rome, Athens. The story of the West is the application of biblical principle along with reason. And so what you see in Aquinas, what you see in Maimonides, is the idea that there is and this is something you agree with, Dennis, there is a reason to God's commandments that is discoverable in general by humans. That it is not just a series of, the word in Hebrew would be chukim, it's not just a series of rationality-free commands, that when you look at God's law, it actually makes a lot of sense. And so what Maimonides sort of suggests, and Aquinas does too, is that there is no conflict between natural law and biblical law, and that's why Aquinas essentially says that Plato and Aristotle came very close to mimicking the morality of the Bible just through use of pure reason, but they couldn't get fully there because you still require revelation.
Okay. All right. The reason I asked it is because I think I represent a lot of my listeners who've heard the term all their lives and are not all that clear on it either. All right. Anyway, if you had the ability to speak to every young person in America, what would you say with regard to the next election?
What I would say is that the character of the presidential candidate is not code for what they represent. Right now, I think there's a great conflict in the view of President Trump. And the view of President Trump, on the one hand, people on the left, they point to the fact that he's vulgar, and then he says things on Twitter they don't like, and the fact that, all the things that we already know about President Trump and his flaws. And they say, why should somebody like that be president? And people on the right say, because they're stopping people on the left. Right? That what Trump really is, what he represents more than anything, is a dam against the encroaching waves that are going to swamp society if Democrats were to take complete power and move toward that. The battle in the election, and Dennis, is something you've been saying for a really long time, is very rarely about the candidate themselves. It's about the movements that they represent or the philosophies that they represent. And so if you're going to make an intelligent choice about who you want to be president, you should be making that choice not on the basis of Trump's vicissitudes or Joe Biden's senility. You should be making a choice on the basis of, do you think the idea is represented by the movements that are backing these folks?
Okay, hold on there, and I want to continue with it. His book, Ben Shapiro's book, How to Destroy America in 3 Easy Steps, is up at DennisPrager.com.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Maxine Waters, speaking of her, says that federal agents in unmarked cars could be the people that Trump uses to help him resist stepping down when he loses the re-election.
I have said all along that this man is a deplorable human being.
This is where we consider the source. Keep going.
And certainly, there's nothing that he could say that would shock me anymore.
She is going to explode when he wins re-election. Absolutely explode.
And so he's already, basically talked about perhaps there might be a civil war.
When did he say there might be a civil war? Did I miss that?
To stepping down, believe him, because I tell you, something is going on in this country. When I take a look at what is going on in Oregon.
Schools have gotten worse since she's been in office. Percentage of kids born without a father in the house gotten higher since she's been in office. What has she done? Other than chant racism for the last 30 years. What has she done? Refused to come on the show and told Gloria Allred, who then had a show on the same station I did, why she wouldn't come on Larry Elder's show. I don't go on shows of entertainers. He's nothing but an entertainer. Gloria, you're a serious journalist. Gloria Allred is a serious journalist. I digress. You're a serious journalist, Gloria, but I don't have time to waste with those entertainers. As William F. Buckley said in describing why Ted Kennedy refused to come on his show in 30 years, why does the baloney avoid the grinder? Gary.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
And the Uyghur concentration camps is beginning to break through as the repression of Hong Kong has broken through, as have the claims in the South China Sea. From 1989 until very recently, a generation has been educated in the idea that the end of history, Francis Fukuyama, it's all coming together. It's not all coming together. It's coming head to head between the CCP and the U.S., with Russia and Iran as kind of, agents of influence of the CCP, but it really is West versus East now.
It is West versus East, and you see China, whereas before it would kind of, do its foreign policy that often was, against U.S. foreign policy in a very quiet, covert way. Now you see China being much more bold, and you even see diplomats. We've talked a lot about these diplomatic warriors that are going off and really speaking against the United States. And you've seen this, I wouldn't even call it a Cold War. I'd call it a kind of open war of rhetoric when you saw China blaming, after President Trump really started hitting China for its actions on the coronavirus, started saying that the U.S. brought the virus to China. And it's not just the U.S. China is really hitting back against anybody that criticizes them. Diplomats Chinese diplomats around the world have taken a much more aggressive stance to countries that criticize them.
Yeah.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe.
Hello, everybody. Final segment on this book. It's an important book, How to Destroy America in 3 Easy Steps, Ben Shapiro. So, shall I go on, or do you have more that you would want to say to young people about this election?
I mean, the only other thing I would say is that if you believe that America needs to be remade, you're being deeply ungrateful in the greatest society ever devised by man, and you should probably vote Democrat.
That's correct. It's astonishing that people don't understand how good this country is. That's my theory. I by the way, I say the left hates America not because it's bad, but because it's good. There's a tremendous... go on.
No, I think that's right. I mean, I think that what the left sees is that the institutions of the United States have generated more wealth, prosperity, tolerance, decency than any other institutions, save for maybe churches and synagogues and mosques in the history of mankind. In the history of mankind. And the left's response to this is that they don't like the system itself because the system itself is not the utopian redistributionist system they wish for, and so they simply wish onto the system all of the flaws that they perceive. They treat every flaw in the United States as though it is unique, and they treat everything exceptional about the United States as though it is common, when precisely the opposite is the truth. Everything exceptional about the United States is in fact exceptional, and everything that is flawed about the United States tends to be rather universal in human nature. And the history of the United States shows this, as does the current factor that other countries exist in the world, the utter myopia of people who suggest that problems in the United States are unique to the United States without even taking a look at other countries around the world is astonishing.
The last minute of what you said, I would like to replay on a regular basis on my show. What is exceptional about America, they think is normal, and what is flawed about America, they think is exceptional. That is exactly right. The ignorance is amazing. Do you have? I always ask this of conservative Jews and conservative blacks. In your extended family, is it mostly conservative?
No, of course not. Of course not. Jewish Dennis, you know the answer to this. We're the only Orthodox Jews in our extended family, and so that means that virtually everybody else in our family votes Democrat.
Do you ever have discussions, or you try to tone it down?
It's kind of purposeless. I mean, if you wish to have relationships with relatives, typically there are only a couple of ways to do it. One is some of them are open and actually want to have discussions and actually care, and the other is that they're looking for a fight, and so it's better to just you can't even watch football anymore. So basically, you just go in the other room and stare at the walls and eat turkey on Thanksgiving. So those are really the two choices. And in my family, we seem to have opted for the latter. I would say for the most part.
Right, I totally get it. So, are you going to watch football?
No, I have no. By the way, baseball's killing me. It's just killing me. I'm a huge baseball fan, as you know, Dennis. I mean, I wrote a book with my dad on the 2005 Chicago White Sox championship season, and the idea that I'm supposed to participate in what is essentially a communal ritual in which we talk about how America is systemically racist, as demonstrated by a Morgan Freeman video on empathy and a bunch of extraordinarily wealthy, largely diverse young people playing sport for millions of dollars. And we're supposed to talk about how America is terrible and hear from a major corporate organization that derives its money from a huge swath of the American public in a free country. I'm going to go no on that, and I'll wait until baseball gets its head on straight before I watch again. I think that it's come to the point where I would love nothing better than to ignore the politics of baseball and just watch baseball, but they're making it impossible to ignore it. I mean, they're putting slogans on the mound, for goodness sake.
Yes, on the mound. All right, Ben, keep fighting. We need you. How to Destroy America in 3 Easy Steps is his book. It's up at DennisPrager.com. I'll speak to you soon. Thanks for all you do.
I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. That's correct. At the root of the problem is naivete. Naivete is a big sin. It's a sin to be naive when you're an adult. When you're 15, you shouldn't be naive at 15. One of the reasons I developed differently, there's no doubt in my mind, is such an awareness of human evil. First and foremost, I knew so much about the Holocaust at a very early age. So I was already grateful, wow, America's not like that. Then I learned a massive amount about communism. That was my field of study. Tens and tens of millions of people, non-soldiers, non-war, slaughtered, whole societies enslaved. And then I'm going to try to transform America, that beacon of hope in this dark world. Shame on the left. Shame on all of you. Relief factor. Let's see here. Leah in Ohio. One Sunday morning, I sat on my couch in so much pain I was in tears. That's the day I ordered Relief Factor. Following directions, in 8 days I found relief, only to get better and better. That is exactly right. That is typical of people's responses. Pete and Seth Talbot, father and son, are honest people, and they made an honest product. Please give it a try. You'll know in 3 weeks if it works. That 3 weeks is $19.95. ReliefFactor.com, 800-500-8384.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
The Black American community has been taken for granted by the Democratic Party for 50 years. And I really think finally we have enough, reality and history to look at that people are saying something's not working. I may be open to something else. We've arrived at that moment, and it seems a perfect time for the film.
You've said that Black people have been taken for granted. I think you're stating it kindly. Black people have been manipulated and used and made worse off because of left-wing policies. Policies that reward a woman to marry the government, allows men to abandon their financial and moral responsibility. Policies that will not allow an inner-city parent to get his or her kid out of a bad, underperforming nearby government school. I think I've told you, I went to Crenshaw High School, which is a high school that was in the center of that movie, Boys in the Hood. Right now, according to an LA Times article, only 3% of kids at my high school can do math at grade level. And the school is a Crip school, meaning that it's run by the gang called the Crips. The reason I know that is because Ice-T went to my high school years after I did and told me he selected Crenshaw High School because he wanted to go to a high school where the Crips ran the school. Now, you're a parent living within that geographical area. One party, the Democratic Party, is mandating that you send your daughter who just graduated from middle school to that school where only 3% of kids can do math at grade level and is a Crip school. And one party, the Republican Party, wants to give that inner city parent an option. Why are we even having a conversation about which party is the better party for blacks? If education is the route to the middle class, and if education is, as both Democrats and Republicans say, the 21st century civil rights issue, then why are you not allowing parents the option to opt out of a bad, underperforming government school?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
And there's Pelosi calling this the Trump virus. And I'm back to my original point about overreaching, but I've just got to pick your brain. I've got to see if you can explain to me the wisdom of the Speaker of the House going there. The Trump, Richard, the Trump virus? Are you kidding?
No, I just wanted to say that I live in Southern Illinois, the bastion of Democrat evil.
Yep.
And we're the unwashed, uneducated masses who fix your refrigerators and fix your air conditioning.
Hi, everybody. That's what you have to tell your Democratic children. You don't understand. how good America is. They don't. I am watching the best country. There's just no knock on other countries. They all know that America has been the beacon of liberty. Whatever they say, that everybody knows it. They all know that they depend on America not to be invaded by Russia in Europe, not to be invaded by China in East Asia, not to be taken over by Iran in the Middle East. This is all depending on America. In Hong Kong, in the demonstrations for liberty, they didn't wave any flag but the American flag. This will stop if the Democrats win. They don't care about liberty. It's so painful to me that people that I love, thank God not my immediate family, it would actually be painful to me. I have really good shock absorbers. If my kids were leftists, it would be a blow, because I would know they joined a cult. How would you feel if your kids joined a cult? Terrible, right? The left is a cult. It's the biggest cult in American history. That's why they sever relations often with parents. That's why they ostracize anyone who deviates. That's why it's based completely on faith. Everything is a faith statement. America is racist, systemically racist, a faith statement. It's not empirically true. There was a piece about hydroxychloroquine in Newsweek by a major Yale epidemiologist, who basically says that thousands are dying because of the political opposition to hydroxychloroquine and zinc. My view, the doctors who opposed hydroxychloroquine, the governors who opposed it, will have blood on their hands. I mean serious blood. I don't talk that way. They will be the reason that vast numbers of people died of COVID who could have been saved. If it's used in the first 5 days with zinc and azithromycin, in the vast, overwhelming majority of cases, people will be saved. You know why India? People are packed together in poor sanitation very often, and you have relatively few deaths because of the vast, widespread use of hydroxychloroquine. You have blood on your hands, doctors who oppose this, you understand? You have violated the Hippocratic Oath by opposing hydroxychloroquine. First, do no harm. You're doing harm. You know damn well it's perfectly safe. If it's just a placebo, you shouldn't oppose it. You should read the comments on the Newsweek article. What's happening to Newsweek that it publishes such disinformation? The disinformation was published in the New England Journal of Medicine and the Lancet. That's where that came from. I touted this from the very beginning. You don't have to be an epidemiologist to have logic. When doctors keep using it and it keeps working, then you use it. That clear? Why isn't that clear? You have a loved one with COVID? You need to get it. It's a very powerful piece in Newsweek. And I will read parts of it to you. In the meantime, here's important news. The Harvard University Board of Overseers is under pressure to alter its name due to the term having ties to slavery. Oh, you didn't get it in the beginning. Wow. You are not woke. The coalition. Do you know what all this proves? I told you, all of this proves how little racism there is in America. When you have to fight Uncle Ben, Aunt Jemima, Board of Overseers, master bedroom, do you understand? It proves how little racism there is in the country because they're preoccupied with nonsense. The Board of Overseers. Oh, my God. The Coalition for a Diverse Harvard is calling for the board to drop the title overseer, as the term was also used to refer to individuals who managed plantations. The alumni organization Harvard Forward brought attention to the Board of Overseers' name in a series of tweets. Boy, is that misnamed? Should be named Harvard Backward. Today, on the 237th anniversary of the abolition of slavery in Massachusetts, we join the Harvard Diverse Coalition in calling to hashtag rename the overseers. Harvard Forward tweeted on July 8th. The continued use of a word characterized by such deep-seated racism is a testament to Harvard's failure to confront our country's history. In June, the University of Louisville scrapped the title overseer from its student government bodies, saying the term harkens back to American slavery and reminds us of the brutality of the conditions and treatment of black people during that time.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Our nation is witnessing a merciless campaign to wipe out our history, defame our heroes, erase our values, and indoctrinate our children.
Is that in any way an exaggeration?
Absolutely not. He's spot on. He was spot on. And, you know, my own story, the American dream, my story is the American dream, and everything our country has stood for. You couldn't do this anywhere else in the world, come from where I've been to where I'm at now. And the fears now, I mean, look at all the things that have gone on in these Democrat cities and in my home state of Minnesota and Minneapolis with all this poor leadership that's bringing us down a path for the last 50 years, bringing us down this path away from what this great country was founded on. You know, our new slogan should be "Keep America Free." You know,
keep America free. A lot of people have been talking in the last few years about a political career, a political future for Michael Lindell. Tell us about what you're doing to help make America great again.
Well, I've got the president appointed me the chairman of the Minnesota Trump campaign. I was just with him 2-3 weeks ago, I guess now, and I've been there twice in the last few weeks, and we're going to be doing so much as soon as the restrictions come off in our state. You can't have a big gathering, but I've made a promise to the president we'll win Minnesota, first time since 1972, and you know I believe Minnesota is ground zero not only for this election but for the spiritual warfare going on in this country.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
When the facts are stacked against you, as they are now against Democratic policies and the history of the Democratic Party, all you have left is name calling. And so I can't even think of the name of the person who said, if you vote for Trump, you are a racist. It was on Twitter like this morning, and I thought to myself, now we know that racism is the last bastion of a scoundrel. To use the term racism, because you have nothing else. And so you just throw names like this. It's just absurd, but people really need to reject it strongly and don't take it sitting down.
It is so manipulative. You have Joe Biden, as you know, telling Charlemagne the God, if you haven't figured out whether you want me or Trump, you ain't really black. This is the guy, Joe Biden, who has consistently lied about his civil rights record. He has said publicly several times that I worked to desegregate lunch counters and movie theaters in Wilmington, Delaware. Zero evidence of it. And Jake Tapper, some months ago,
Hey, I just want to remind you, if you want to pay a lot less on your phone bill, Your Talk USA, go pound 250, say Dennis Prager. You ready? $20 a month, unlimited text, unlimited talk, and 2 gigabytes of data. Pure Talk USA, pound 250, say Dennis Prager. There are a lot of great calls, so don't hang up even when we get to the end of the hour. There are a lot of calls here. So, some I won't be able to take, but you stay on. Let's go to Nell in Mountain Home, Arkansas.
Hi.
Hi.
I have 3 children. They're all adults. And, you know, they're all liberal. I don't get it. My oldest one, brilliant man. He's a brilliant man. And I don't understand why someone with such good logic can be so taken by this stuff. I don't get it.
Where did he go to college?
He went online. All 3 of them got online degrees.
Fascinating. And are they liberal or left?
Yes. They're, you know, Marxism is good.
Marxism,
you know, I mean, my oldest son...
Marxism is good, is that what you said?
Yeah, that's what he says, you know, that I just don't understand communism.
Wow.
I think I do. And, you know, we have talks, and I am not a great debater. I am the first to admit I am not a great debater.
Ask him to see I am a great debater. Ask him to see my 5-minute video. Just ask him for 5 minutes. Why don't people hate communism as much as Nazism? It's at PragerU. You don't understand communism. That, to me, is as morally defective as a kid saying to a parent, you don't understand Nazism. It's not that bad. To grow up in America and to say that, it shows you how defective the education is in our schools. But this has been true my whole life. People don't know what communism has done. Over 100 million people and billions enslaved. That's all.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio.
At every turn, it seems like there are more unanswered questions and few honest explanations about why so many of our liberties are under attack.
Why are so many bright people teaching me nonsense?
Some of the scenes of violent protests are just amazing. They're irrational evil.
Dennis Prager and Dr. Wayne Grudem confront the toughest social issues we face today, explained through historical, political, and never-before-told personal stories.
More rabbis, priests, and ministers, Fear the left and fear God.
When you stand before God at the final judgment, what will you say to him about how you voted on abortion laws?
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
We're going to be getting back to Mr. Biden in just a second. Some of the things he said about President Trump being racist. It's just unreal. This is a man, Joe Biden, who has lied and said that the NAACP has endorsed him when the NAACP came out and said, "Excuse me, we're a 501c3 corporation. We can't endorse anybody." Oops. Lied about trying to visit Nelson Mandela and getting arrested in his attempt. He said he was with Andrew Young. Andrew Young was the first black ambassador to the United Nations. Marched with MLK, was there when MLK was shot at that motel in Tennessee. And when he was asked about Biden's claim that the two of them attempted to visit Nelson Mandela when Nelson Mandela was imprisoned and that they were arrested in doing so, he said nope, nope, and nope. And I've told you, Biden has for decades talked about how he would organize on Sunday mornings in black churches and strategize how he and others would figure out ways to desegregate restaurants and movie theaters in Wilmington, Delaware. Zero evidence he ever did. Now, why is it people are angry at Rachel Dolezal for lying about being black, but Joe Biden gets a pass for lying about all these things he claims he's done to advance the interests of black people? What it shows you is he thinks of black people as stupid, obviously not capable of investigating these false claims, and, by the way, as props. I'll just show you how much I care, how much I care, how much I care. Never mind my policies are hurtful. Never mind I'm going to oppose choice in schools even though urban parents want that. Never mind I'm going to advocate a bigger and bigger welfare state even though dependencies creates fatherless households. Never mind.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
There are about 700 Uyghurs, mostly women, who are forced to make sneakers for a company that is a long-term supplier for the company that we know as Nike.
Hang on. I don't want anybody to miss this. So there is a slave labor camp where they make sneakers, and that company feeds its products into the factories that make sneakers for Nike, Gordon?
Yeah, this is a Nike supplier. So Nike works directly with a company that maintains what is a camp. It's got high walls, barbed wire, watchtowers, and really looks like a small concentration camp. It is a factory. This company has had a relationship with Nike for over 3 decades. This particular facility makes 8 million pairs of shoes a year, almost all of them for Nike. Nike says in a statement that it doesn't use forced or indentured labor, but indeed we know that it does, because Washington Post reporting from both March and February of this year, after Nike's statement on this subject, shows that the Uyghur women were transported there against their will. They cannot leave.
Explain for those who aren't familiar, who are the Uyghurs and why are they such a threat to the communist dictatorship in Beijing and to Xi Jinping?
Uyghurs are Turkic people. In other words, they're not the same racial stock as the majority ethnic group in China. They speak their own language, got their own culture, and they have their own religion.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
I'm relatively calm. I had a rough night last night when I saw all the baseball players at the Nationals-Yankees game taking a knee, and I thought they were doing so during the Star-Spangled Banner. I saw a lot of comments on social media. I'm out. That's it. I'm never going to go to another baseball game or watch another baseball game again. And then I found out pretty quickly They didn't take a knee at the Nationals-Yankees game during the anthem. Every single player stood respectfully during the Star-Spangled Banner. That's the takeaway. Taking a knee during a Morgan Freeman video and holding a black ribbon of unity, as the players did, was before the national anthem. And then for the anthem, they all rose and they stood respectfully for the Star-Spangled Banner. That's a big difference. And I don't know that a lot of people know the difference. I think people saw that image. And I know there was another game and there were a couple players. We're going to see people taking a knee, and you'll get to make a decision about how you respond to that. But listen, the president said it last night. Sean Hannity had a one-on-one with President Trump. It was fascinating. I really wish everybody who hates this man would be willing to take 20 minutes of their life and watch the whole interview. I mean, here's the president on the phone from the White House. Sean, of course, is a huge supporter and an advocate of President Trump and conservatism. And it just gives you insights into the way the man thinks.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
4 years ago,
is the deaths. It's the worst aspect, obviously. Deaths could be prevented with hydroxychloroquine and zinc in the first 5 days. Eventually, it will come out that doctors are killing people deliberately. Not that they wake up and say, how do I kill people? But they're deliberately depriving people of what could have saved their lives. Some doctors are not. Not all doctors. There's blood on the hands of doctors and others who are preventing people from getting hydroxychloroquine and zinc. At the worst, my friends, it doesn't do a damn thing. Okay? People have been taking it. Read comments from veterans for malaria in Vietnam who took it constantly. People with lupus who take it. Are they dying of arrhythmia? I told you everything the left touches it poisons. Medicine is not exempt from that rule. Baseball is not exempt. Football is not exempt. It's a poisonous, toxic cult. I'm not shocked. I expected nothing better from doctors than I do from lawyers or teachers or any other group. Doctors run the gamut of wonderful people with medical degrees to morons with medical degrees. Okay? So it shouldn't shock you. The human condition is pathetic. There are some wonderful people. They're a minority. So it is. As professor of epidemiology at Yale School of Public Health, this is in Newsweek, Harvey Risch, we're going to have him on, professor of epidemiology, Yale School of Public Health. I have authored over 300 peer-reviewed publications. By the way, the reason I'm pushing it is to save your life or that of a loved one. I have no other reason to push it. I'm taking it, by the way. Okay? Just for the record. I have authored over 300 peer-reviewed publications and currently hold senior positions on the editorial boards of several leading journals. I am usually accustomed to advocating for positions within the mainstream of medicine. So I've been flummoxed to find that in the midst of a crisis, I am fighting for a treatment that the data fully support, but which, for reasons having nothing to do with a correct understanding of the science. Oh yeah, that's another left-wing thing. Follow the science. These liars. They don't follow the science. If they followed the science, they would have been pushing nuclear power. If they followed the science, they'd be pushing hydroxychloroquine and zinc. Having nothing to do with a correct understanding of the science had been pushed to the sidelines. As a result, listen to this, the most important line in his article. Tens of thousands of patients with COVID-19 are dying unnecessarily. We could open up the country, not with a vaccine. It's a very dubious prospect, very dubious. I have a little faith in a vaccine. I have great faith in a cure. Not for everybody. There's no such thing as a cure for everybody. But how's tens of thousands? Fortunately, the situation can be reversed easily and quickly. I am referring, of course, to the medication hydroxychloroquine. By the way, a big pharma, which I have never used that term, but I now do, they can't stand hydroxychloroquine. What does it cost? 20 cents? $1? $10? It's nothing. But, what is it? Remdesivir? Is that the name of it? $1,000 a shot. That's serious money. When this inexpensive oral medication is given very early in the course of illness, before the virus has had time to multiply beyond control, it has shown to be highly effective, especially when given in combination with the antibiotics azithromycin or doxycycline and the nutritional supplement zinc. On May 27th, I published an article in the American Journal of Epidemiology titled Early Outpatient Treatment of Symptomatic High-Risk COVID-19 Patients That Should Be Ramped Up Immediately as Key to the Pandemic Crisis. That article, published in the world's leading epidemiology journal, analyzed 5 studies demonstrating clear-cut and significant benefits to treated patients, plus other very large studies that showed the medication safety. I myself know of 2 doctors who have saved the lives of hundreds of patients with these medications, but are now fighting state medical boards to save their licenses and reputations. You hear that? That's how poisoned medical boards have become because of leftists. They rather people die than allow something the president touted to be shown effective. I believe that as strongly as I believe that I'm talking to you now. That is how evil the left is. It wants to tear down a great country. Is that not evil? Is evil overstated? Does that mean that every single human being who supports the left is evil? There are some nice people who support evil. This is not unheard of, my friends. Sweet fools have done a lot of damage. Unbelievable. They're fighting state medical boards. The cases against them are completely without scientific merit. Since publication of my May 27th article, 7 more studies, 7, have demonstrated similar benefits. In a lengthy follow-up letter published by the American Journal of Epidemiology, I discuss these 7 studies and renew my call for the immediate early use of hydroxychloroquine in high-risk patients. These 7 studies include an additional 400 high-risk patients treated by Dr. Vladimir Zelenko with 0 deaths, 4 studies totaling almost 500 high-risk patients treated in nursing homes and clinics across the U.S. with no deaths, a controlled trial of more than 700 high-risk patients in Brazil with significantly reduced risk of hospitalization and 2 deaths among 334 patients treated with hydroxychloroquine, and another study of 398 matched patients in France, along with significantly reduced hospitalization risk. Since my letter was published, even more doctors have reported to me their completely successful use. Beyond these studies of individual patients, We have seen what happens in large populations when these drugs are used. These have been natural experiments in the northern Brazil state of Pará. COVID-19 deaths were increasing exponentially. On April 6th, the public hospital network purchased 75,000 doses of azithromycin and 90,000 doses of hydroxychloroquine. Over the next few weeks, authorities began distributing these medications to infected individuals. Even though new cases continue to occur, on May 22, the death rate started to plummet and is now about 1/8 what it was at its peak. A reverse natural experiment happened in Switzerland. On May 27th, the Swiss national government banned outpatient use of hydroxychloroquine for COVID-19. Around June 10th, COVID-19 deaths increased fourfold and remained elevated. The Swiss government killed all those people. On June 11th, the Swiss government revoked the ban. And on June 23rd, the death rate reverted to what it had been beforehand. Thanks to the left, there are dead people in Switzerland. Only because of the left, not because of science. Because science has been deformed, as has baseball, football, and the arts and colleges. Why has hydroxychloroquine been disregarded? He gives 3 reasons. 1, as we all know, the medication has become highly politicized. 2, the drug has not been used properly in many studies. I will explain, I will take your calls, and I'm trying to save your life. I have no other agenda.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio.
At every turn, it seems like there are more unanswered questions and few honest explanations about why so many of our liberties are under attack.
Why are so many bright people teaching me nonsense?
Some of the scenes of violent protests are just amazing. They're irrational evil.
Dennis Prager and Dr. Wayne Grudem confront the toughest social issues we face today, explained through historical, political, and never-before-told personal stories.
More rabbis, priests, and ministers fear the left and fear God.
When you stand before God at the final judgment, what will you say to him about how you voted on abortion laws?
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
We're going to be getting back to Mr. Biden in just a second. Some of the things he said about President Trump being racist. It's just unreal. This is a man, Joe Biden, who has lied and said that the NAACP has endorsed him when the NAACP came out and said, excuse me, we're a 501c3 corporation. We can't endorse anybody. Oops. Lied about trying to visit Nelson Mandela and getting arrested in his attempt. He said he was with Andrew Young. Andrew Young was the first black ambassador to the United Nations. Marched with MLK, was there when MLK was shot at that motel in Tennessee. And when he was asked about Biden's claim that the two of them attempted to visit Nelson Mandela when Nelson Mandela was imprisoned and that they were arrested in doing so, he said nope, nope, and nope. And I've told you, Biden has for decades talked about how he would organize on Sunday mornings in black churches and strategize how he and others would figure out ways to desegregate restaurants and movie theaters in Wilmington, Delaware. Zero evidence he ever did. Now, why is it people are angry at Rachel Dolezal for lying about being black, but Joe Biden gets a pass for lying about all these things he claims he's done to advance the interests of black people? What it shows you is he thinks of black people as stupid, obviously not capable of investigating these false claims, and, by the way, as props. I'll just show you how much I care, how much I care, how much I care. Never mind my policies are hurtful. Never mind I'm going to oppose choice in schools even though urban parents want that. Never mind I'm going to advocate a bigger and bigger welfare state even though dependencies creates fatherless households. Never mind.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
There are about 700 Uyghurs, mostly women, who are forced to make sneakers for a company that is a long-term supplier for the company that we know as Nike.
Hang on. I don't want anybody to miss this. So there is a slave labor camp where they make sneakers, and that company feeds its products into the factories that make sneakers for Nike, Gordon?
Yeah, this is a Nike supplier. So Nike works directly with a company that maintains what is a camp. It's got high walls, barbed wire, watchtowers, and really looks like a small concentration camp. It is a factory. This company has had a relationship with Nike for over 3 decades. This particular facility makes 8 million pairs of shoes a year, almost all of them for Nike. Nike says in a statement that it doesn't use forced or indentured labor, but indeed we know that it does, because Washington Post reporting from both March and February of this year, after Nike's statement on this subject, shows that the Uyghur women were transported there against their will. They cannot leave.
I want to remind you about flattenthefear.com, a spectacularly important website where people in science tell you the truth and not the fear propaganda. That's why it's called flattenthefear.com. It's one of those places where truth and science actually matter. The country has been overtaken by panic for 4 years. Should have been just one of the most peaceful times in American history. Very little war abroad, massively successful economy. The race is getting along great. But the power-hungry left. How did Karlin Borisenko, a left-leaning psychologist in New England, find herself at a Trump rally? And how did she react? One of the most powerful videos we've ever put out. The latest video from Prager University. See it at prageru.com, where we teach what isn't taught. I do not want the economy to rebound before the election. I believe that with all my heart and soul. I'm reading to you a piece. Oh, yes, so go to flattenthefear.com. That's how I got started on that. Flattenthefear.com. Reading to you from a leading epidemiologist, Yale University, on all the tests that have shown how successful hydroxychloroquine is. So he says, why has it been disregarded? First, because the medication has become highly politicized, meaning the left has poisoned the discussion. Second, the drug has not been used properly in many studies. Hydroxychloroquine has shown major success when used early in high-risk people, but as one would expect for an antiviral, much less success when used late in the disease course. Third, concerns have been raised by the FDA and others about risks of cardiac arrhythmia, especially when hydroxychloroquine is given in combination with azithromycin. But what the FDA did not announce is that these adverse events were generated from tens of millions of patients using hydroxychloroquine for long periods of time, often for the chronic treatment of lupus or rheumatoid arthritis. Even if the true rates of arrhythmia are tenfold higher than those reported, the harms would be minuscule compared to the mortality occurring right now in inadequately treated high-risk COVID-19 patients. This fact is proven by an Oxford University study of more than 320,000 older patients taking both hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin who had arrhythmia excess death rates. Are you ready? with all this arrhythmia talk? How many per 100,000 users did they have arrhythmia excess death rate? 9 out of 100,000. As I discuss in my May 27th paper, cited above. We go to your calls. I have a ton to talk to you about, but you have fascinating calls. All right. Kevin in Chatsworth, California. Hello.
Good morning, Dennis. You guys are the greatest. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
About 2 weeks ago, I called up my local urgent care that I've been visiting for the past 15 years because I wanted to find out if I were to come down with the COVID-19, how would I get the hydroxychloroquine and zinc? And what is the availability of it, or would I have to go elsewhere for it? And so I called them up and asked them if they could prescribe that. And they said, well, what would we be prescribing it for? And I said, well, COVID-19. So she put me on hold, came back and said, we're not able to prescribe it. And I said, what? She said, no, we're not able to prescribe it for that. I said, you must be kidding. She said, no. I said, well, can you have somebody call me back? They never called me back. But I then went to the FDA site, and I was really disturbed. I meant to call you last week on this. And from FDA.gov on June 15th this year, today the U.S. Food and Drug Administration revoked the Emergency Use Authorization, EUA, that allowed for chloroquine phosphate and hydroxychloroquine sulfate donated to the Strategic National Stockpile to be used to treat certain hospitalized patients with COVID-19 when a clinical trial was unavailable or participation in a clinical trial was not feasible. The agency determined that the legal criteria for issuing a emergency use authorization are no longer met. Based on its ongoing analysis of the EUA and emerging scientific data, the FDA determined that chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine are unlikely to be effective in treating COVID-19 for the authorized uses in the emergency use authorization.
So it shows you how poisoned our bureaucracies are. Folks, I take a risk taking this position. Right? I have gone, what is the word? Against the grain on my whole life. I've been right every time. I'm not bragging to you. All I use is common sense. That's all I use. And a desire to do good. It's a great combination, common sense and the desire to do good. That's it. That's all you need. It's an amazing thing. Ben in Minneapolis. Hello.
Hello, Dennis.
Yep.
All right. I know this isn't related to what you're talking about.
No, that's
now,
fine.
but,
I took it intentionally. Don't worry about it.
Well, anyway, I was first of all, I've been a Baptist minister most of my life, and at any rate, I went to work for a coach bus company, and another gentleman and I got a trip going to Washington, D.C., and it was regarding the 20-year reunion of the Million Man March. And on the way out there, of course, so we were with them. We drove straight through out and back. And on the way out there, I heard a fair amount of talk about, you young black men have got to take care of your children and your wives and that kind of thing. And, agreement to that kind of a deal. But after we were there on the way back, the tone changed dramatically, and it began with Washington, D.C. was built on the back of slaves, and they owe us and need to pay us back. So there was about 20 hours of that kind of thing on the way back. And this gentleman and I driving, we're both white, and got more and more concerned about ourselves. And, I don't know if they would have done any harm to us, but it was just very clear very early on to me what their agenda was, what they were trying to accomplish, and it was all about our responsibility as white people to stand back and take care of all that. So
All right, I got to let you go. It's a very sobering story. That's a problem, my friends, one of many.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
One, I get to continue my conversation with Roger Stone. Roger, I still cannot get over the moment a week ago I heard your sentence was commuted, and then shortly thereafter you declared rather boldly that you'd been born again, that you'd given your life to Christ. And I said to my wife, God's hand is on this country, because not only do we have a president who would commute your horrible sentence, but we have people like you being willing to say what you said on a program that was obviously watched by a lot of people who weren't looking forward to that part of it. They just were happy for you and for the commutation.
Well, I knew when I went on Sean's show, I knew that secular liberal elitists in the media would mock me, as they have. There's a big piece in Washington Monthly. Oh, Roger Stone's converted to Christ. What a joke. It's a head fake. It's a ploy. Okay, we'll see. It doesn't matter to me what they think, because all that matters is what he thinks, and he knows what's in my heart. It'll be proven over time. So I'm not worried about that. What we see happening today is an epic struggle between dark and light. This is it for the United States. We're going to hurtle over the cliff to globalism and face 1,000 years of darkness unless we win the next election, and that we then move to preserve our constitutional government and end the epic two-party duopoly control of this country. That
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
About 1.4 million Americans applied for unemployment benefits once again last week. The new data just released. It is, of course, a discouraging sign. Workers have now filed more than 52 million initial jobless claims since layoffs spiked in mid-March, according to the New York Post, suggesting about a third of the American labor force has been out of work at some point during the pandemic. Lawmakers are still trying to hash out what to do, whether to extend that $600 a week boost to weekly unemployment benefits. It is a tough debate. No easy answers for me. I believe the answer has to be, we got to get people back to work. We have to get people back to work. We have to acknowledge that the virus is here. You have to be careful. And incidentally, back to the lesson of my friend, the president has urged everyone to wear a mask when you are in proximity to other people, if you can't socially distance. I was pretty mindful in my office. We wear a mask. Everybody has a mask in the office. But if I'm in the office with somebody, if I'm in an office setting and I'm 6, 7, 8 feet away, I take the mask off. Well, this particular coworker and friend, the other day, the day that they started feeling symptoms, that morning, I was in the office with them, about, I would say 7, 8 feet away, and I instinctively take the mask off. And that person even said at that time, because they always have a mask.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
You have written, it's not safe.
Yes, hello, y'all. Dennis Prager here. Alex Berenson, who's terrific, tweets. Florida again. People over 85, not 75, 85, make up 1 in 3 of COVID deaths statewide. 5 times as many deaths as everyone under 55. Put another way, if you're over 85, you have a 1 in 300 chance of dying of COVID in Florida in the last 5 months. If you're under 55, your chances of dying the last 5 months in Florida was 1 in 33,000. Under 55, even if you all have underlying conditions. Get it? Even if you start out with a weak heart or bad lungs, which is really the part that gets hit by COVID. 1 in 33,000. And for that, we're supposed to lock up states. I have a friend who owns a restaurant, and I think he's going out of business, and I'm torn. 1 in 114,000 Americans. That's it? 1 out of every 100. No, it doesn't make. I can't believe that. Yeah, well, it's the same thing. The odds of dying from a car crash is 1 in 114. Now it's too high. He's showing me his computer. All right. The odds, okay. Here are the odds of dying. The lifetime odds of dying. I get it. Heart disease, 1 in 7. I see. So where pedestrian incident. So this is a lifetime, though. This is just the last 5 months. So it's not fully fair. But 1 in 33,000 is pretty minimal. If somebody said to you, listen, I want you to invest $10,000 in this thing, you have a 1 in 33,000 chance of making money. I don't think I'd do an investment, do you? God, if we lived, so let's see. The average annual mortality in long-term care facilities, that's the one. That's 30 to 40%. We wouldn't have had these riots if it weren't for COVID. There wouldn't be much less, because the young people would have been busy. This is the only excitement in their lives, demonstrating. It's not the only reason they're doing it. But if they were busy, like I told you, affluence plus secularism equals boredom. Boredom leads to evil. That's what's happening. All righty, everybody. Kevin in Long Beach, California. Hi, Dennis Prager.
Hi, Dennis. You've been a huge influence on my life since Religion on the Line back in the 80s. And I just want to say, as a public school teacher, I share your indictment of public schools. I want to echo Shapiro's point about human nature and why government power ought to be limited. I've really learned that if the kids don't understand the human nature part, they really can't move forward. I start every class I teach with the human nature question. And when I get to the Constitution, I sprinkle it with quotes from Madison and Jefferson, most notably Madison's quote that all people having power ought to be distrusted. And I just think conservatives need to do a better job just echoing this human nature issue in the schools.
Well,
the schools are probably a lost cause because most teachers don't even understand it.
Yes, I've said my whole life, as you know. That's why you're telling me this. The most important dividing question is, do you think people are basically good? If you think human nature is good, then you will entrust people with vast amounts of power. If you don't believe human nature is good, you want as small a government as possible.
And again, kids just don't see that. It's funny you said that because I just wrote this down. I said, I honestly believe the culture wars can be reduced to those that understand the flawed nature of man.
That's
and
right.
those believing man is infinitely malleable.
Bless you, my friend. It's a pleasure to know you teach. Your mere existence is a tonic in this at this very time. Here is a tonic for you, Relief Factor. Now, you might be tired of hearing about Relief Factor, but I just want you to know that if I am taking people out of pain, I am happy to do this, and I am happy to do this. If I could interview any one of you with pain, say, can you afford $19.95? The odds are the answer is yes. So then I would say, so why aren't you trying it? You think I would tout something I didn't believe in? It's inconceivable, truly inconceivable. They know how many advertisers I have said no to. Not because they were bad, but because I didn't know whether or not it worked. Just try it for 3 weeks for $19.95, the 3-week quick start. 800-500-8384, relieffactor.com.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
There's an adage I've always heard, never make an enemy out of somebody who buys ink by the barrel, meaning don't tick off a newspaper. This man has ticked off an industry. He's popularized the expression fake news and gotten people to realize how biased the media are. We've been talking about it for decades, but I think now people are beginning to realize it because of Trump. They see how he's been misquoted. They've got these people on saying that he referred to the coronavirus as a hoax. No, he didn't. It's been fact-checked, and they said he didn't, but they still say it. Donald Trump said that there are good Nazis and bad Nazis. No, he didn't. But when you don't correct the politician or the pundit for saying it, you're putting it out there on purpose. This is what we're up against. These cockamamie plans that Joe Biden has are not going to be seriously talked about or tested or discussed. More taxes on rich people, a Green New Deal, $15 minimum wage, a commission to study reparations for crying out loud, wealth tax, debt forgiveness, tuition forgiveness, and the continued march towards single payer, which is what they wanted all along. We're not even having a discussion about this. Joe Biden recently said Donald Trump is the first racist president we've ever elected. Are you smelling something? We've had 12 presidents who owned slaves. We had a president that showed Birth of a Nation in the White House. Woodrow Wilson, a Democrat, who resegregated the military, resegregated the federal government. Donald Trump is, honestly, do you ever listen to the LBJ tapes? Hear some of the things he said about people? Democrats. I am Larry Elder.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
It doesn't matter what law enforcement you are. You could be a county sheriff or a member of the Secret Service or I don't know, FBI, work in the Justice Department. If you're in law enforcement, if you're a federal agent, if you are part of the effort to bring peace and lawfulness to a community, if you wear a badge, you are hated by a lot of people of a particular political party, and it's not the Republicans. Here's what Biden said yesterday. He was doing a virtual event, and I don't know that people were shocked that he said it, maybe surprised, because there's an effort.
Did you
to
know that
present
you can see visual highlights of my
President
show
Biden
every day on my YouTube channel? So sign up today, go to youtube.com, type in Dennis Prager channel, and click subscribe. Don't forget to click the bell icon so you'll be notified every time we put up a new clip. My friends, you're listening to the Dennis Prager Show. And let me just check here. We're doing well. We are really doing well. My friends. We put up the hydroxychloroquine article in Newsweek up at DennisPrager.com. I already told you that Harvard wants to rename its Board of Overseers. You understand all of this is proof how little racism there is in America, that they fight Uncle Ben, Aunt Jemima, Board of Overseers, and how many hoaxes there are. Where was the man? Where was it? Milwaukee? A black supporter of Donald Trump was simply gunned down by a drive-by shooting? Did they have any idea who did it? How come that's not national news? Imagine if a BLM supporter was shot by a white guy in a drive-by shooting. Can you imagine how big that would be? 1-8-Prager-776. Yep, indeed. Interesting. Laura in Phoenix, hello.
Oh, I am so pleased to speak with you, Mr. Prager, Dennis.
Mm-hmm.
I had the most disturbing experience regarding my father. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, and my father is a 93-year-old, very healthy, mentally and physically healthy man who lives alone, lives very independently, although I do care for him in many ways. I was visiting my son in Illinois and leaving the state. So I called my dad's doctor, and I said, listen, I just am checking in with you. I'm going out of town for a while, and I want to make sure that should my dad become symptomatic, that you would give him a prescription. I didn't call it the Zelenko protocol, but I said the hydroxychloroquine, erythromycin, and zinc. And he said, no, I would not. And I said, well, I'm a little bit surprised. He said, well, that drug isn't available to us. And I said, well, really, it is. I said, before leaving, I was able to get it through my doctor because I'm going to Illinois, and I was afraid maybe I couldn't get it through a pharmacy there. And he said, well, I don't know why your doctor would give it to you. And I said, because I am 70 years old, and even though I'm healthy, I'm considered high risk, and I didn't want to take the chance after traveling of being symptomatic and having something go wrong with my other grandchildren. So I said, listen, I'm not asking you to give it to him as a prophylactic. I just want your assurance that you would give it to him should he become symptomatic while I'm gone, since I'm not there immediately to take care of him. And he said, no, I won't. And I said, well, I don't understand. I said, this is a drug, and I went on to explain it. I said, it's, I explained that I knew quite a bit about it.
Send him the Newsweek article. I'm serious.
Well, I know, but he argued with me for 20 minutes. Well, first of all, so then he said, well, did you hear this from Trump? And I said, no, I'm not discussing politics.
Wait, he said that?
Yes.
These are the doctors who should lose their licenses. Their hatred of Trump
should. And you know what
trumps
he said?
their
Wait
love
till
of
you
their
hear
patients.
What he said to me. He said to me, he's an idiot.
Right.
And I said, excuse me? Mm-hmm. And he said, he's an idiot. I said, doctor, and I won't tell you his name. I said, I am not discussing politics with you. I am trying to care for my 93-year-old father.
Let me just understand something. Wait. You live in Arizona?
Yes.
And your father lives in Illinois?
No, he lives in Arizona, but I was going to Illinois for a visit, and it was when the coronavirus 3 weeks ago was
All right, so
becoming
wait a minute.
little more.
So the doctor who wouldn't prescribe this is in Arizona?
Yes, and he's a reputable doctor.
It doesn't matter. There's no connection between knowledge and wisdom or knowledge and decency. None. Zero. Nada. I've been saying that my whole life. People worship brains. They should worship character and common sense and wisdom. That's an amazing thing. What will be fascinating, you know what's going to happen? It'll be clear hydroxychloroquine works. When that happens, there will be total silence. Just as with the Russian collusion thing. It dropped. It died. The dominant issue of American life for 2 years ceased to be talked about when it was proven to be a gigantic lie. The left lies because truth is not a left-wing value. And that's it. So when the lie is caught, they don't say we lied, or they don't even say we were mistaken. They just move on to the next lie. The doctor has the audacity to bring in Trump to a patient? Isn't that astonishing? This arrogant fool that he is. This arrogant fool. You know the only time I was ever booed in a speech? In 4 decades of speaking was at a hospital. I spoke to a group of doctors. It wasn't the only time I spoke to doctors. But it was. I remember the hospital, but I won't say the name. And I was invited by a doctor who admired my work. And I spoke about the false gods of modern men and women. It's a speech I've often given. And I said, one of the things that that could be a false god is a doctor. And they booed. It didn't bother me, but it was eye-opening. I don't care if I'm booed. You have no idea how little impact that makes. As I've always explained, I don't let the compliments go to my head, and I don't let the insults go to my heart. It's a good attitude in general in life. The Talmud is the second holiest work in Judaism. Has a great statement. The best doctors go to hell.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
You have written it's not safe to keep schools closed. And you've got a paper about it. In the last minute and a half we have, why is it not safe to keep them closed?
Well, children are suffering tremendously in 2 ways. Number one is the lack of classroom instruction, and the idea that online chats are a substitute for being taught by a teacher is laughable. There's no evidence that that's the case. Students have lost a tremendous amount of learning. They've been set back massively, and that's not just important in terms of them knowing things and their future ability to be effective citizens and so forth. That has enormous health effects as well, because one of the best established relationships we have in public health is the relationship between educational attainment and mortality and life expectancy. And, when you read articles like we've all seen about how, 40,000 kids in Los Angeles haven't logged on a single time, high school students, well, if they drop out, if they don't complete high school dropouts live on average 4 to 6 years shorter lives than high school graduates. And so the loss of life years just from the loss of classroom instruction and educational attainment could dwarf what we've seen from this virus. But the second way is the social emotional development and the isolation and the lack of contact with other humans, which children need as much as everyone needs, probably more, is really brutal. And frankly, and a new study of this just came out in Wisconsin with sky-high numbers. Depression is up around 60 or 70% among students who've been subject to these school closures. And we're going to see suicides go up. Among the high school students, the number 2 cause of death in this country after accidents is suicide. We lose about 3,000 high school age students a year to suicide in this country. We've lost about 20 to this virus in that age bracket. 20.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
At every turn, it seems like there are more unanswered questions and few honest explanations about why so many of our liberties are under attack.
Why are so many bright people teaching me nonsense?
Some of the scenes of violent protests are just amazing. They're irrational evil.
Dennis Prager and Dr. Wayne Grudem confront the toughest social issues we face today, explained through historical, political, and never-before-told personal stories.
More rabbis, priests, and ministers fear the left and fear God.
When you stand before God at the final judgment, What will you say to him about how you voted on abortion laws?
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
We're going to be getting back to Mr. Biden in just a second. Some of the things he said about President Trump being racist. It's just unreal. This is the man, Joe Biden.
Hi, everybody. There's a tweet out that from the American Conservative Voice. I just want you to know I cannot confirm this, but there's a picture of 20 people. Let's see, 20 people, Antifa members arrested in Portland. Now, to get arrested in Portland, you got to really be terrible. Portland is run by terrible people, so they don't have any problem with terrible people. Anyway, so there's 20 mugshots here of Antifa members arrested in Portland. According to this, and there's a picture of them with an X next to the person who was a teacher. 13 out of the 20 Antifa members, according to this, I am not personally verifying. 13 of the 20 in the mugshots of Antifa members in Portland arrested are teachers. I'm reporting it to you despite my usual ability, because I don't have the ability here to verify every name. So I'm just letting you know that. But the reason I'm reporting it, nevertheless, is that I believe it. How would you like your child taught by an Antifa member? You should not send your child to a regular school when they reopen, or you will suffer the consequences. Children who hate the country and may well end up hating you. There's no joy in me in saying this. Teachers are among the most radical groups in America today. Not all, obviously. And the LA Teachers Union says we're not going back to teaching until police are defunded. Okay? Among their many example demands that have nothing to do with kids. I'll tell you this, if you really cared about kids, you would want schools reopened. It's simple as that. I would teach. I volunteer to go into a classroom and substitute teach one day. Let's bring video cameras in. I won't wear a mask unless it's the law of the land for teachers. Amazing the poisonous effect of the left.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio.
At every turn, it seems like there are more unanswered questions and few honest explanations about why so many of our liberties are under attack.
Why are so many bright people teaching me nonsense?
Some of the scenes of violent protests are just amazing. They're irrational evil.
Dennis Prager and Dr. Wayne Grudem confront the toughest social issues we face today, explained through historical, political, and never-before-told personal stories.
More rabbis, priests, and ministers fear the left and fear God.
When you stand before God at the final judgment, what will you say to him about how you voted on abortion laws?
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
We're going to be getting back to Mr. Biden in just a second. Some of the things he said about President Trump being racist. It's just unreal. This is a man, Joe Biden, who has lied and said that the NAACP has endorsed him when the NAACP came out and said, excuse me, we're a 501c3 corporation. We can't endorse anybody. Oops. Lied about trying to visit Nelson Mandela and getting arrested in his attempt. He said he was with Andrew Young. Andrew Young was the first black ambassador to the United Nations. Marched with MLK, was there when MLK was shot at that motel in Tennessee. And when he was asked about Biden's claim that the two of them attempted to visit Nelson Mandela when Nelson Mandela was imprisoned and that they were arrested in doing so, he said nope, nope, and nope. And I've told you, Biden has for decades talked about how he would organize on Sunday mornings in black churches and strategize how he and others would figure out ways to desegregate restaurants and movie theaters in Wilmington, Delaware. Zero evidence he ever did it. Now, why is it people are angry at Rachel Dolezal for lying about being black, but Joe Biden gets a pass for lying about all these things he claims he's done to advance the interests of black people? What it shows you is he thinks of black people as stupid, obviously not capable of investigating these false claims, and, by the way, as props. I'll just show you how much I care, how much I care, how much I care. Never mind my policies are hurtful. Never mind I'm going to oppose choice in schools even though urban parents want that. Never mind I'm going to advocate a bigger and bigger welfare state even though dependencies creates fatherless households. Never mind.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
There are about 700 Uyghurs, mostly women, who are forced to make sneakers for a company that is a long-term supplier for the company that we know as Nike.
Hang on. I don't want anybody to miss this. So there is a slave labor camp where they make sneakers, and that company feeds its products into the factories that make sneakers for Nike, Gordon?
Yeah, this is a Nike supplier. So Nike works directly with a company that maintains what is a camp. It's got high walls, barbed wire, watchtowers, and really looks like a small concentration camp. It is a factory. This company has had a relationship with Nike for over 3 decades. This particular facility makes 8 million pairs of shoes a year, almost all of them for Nike. Nike says in a statement that it doesn't use forced or indentured labor, but indeed we know that it does, because Washington Post reporting from both March and February of this year, after Nike's statement on this subject, shows that the Uyghur women were transported there against their will. They cannot leave.
Explain for those who aren't familiar, who are the Uyghurs and why are they such a threat to the communist dictatorship in Beijing and to Xi Jinping?
Uyghurs are Turkic people. In other words, they're not the same racial stock as the majority ethnic group in China. They speak their own language, got their own culture, and they have their own religion.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
I'm relatively calm. I had a rough night last night when I saw all the baseball players at the Nationals-Yankees game taking a knee, and I thought they were doing so during the Star-Spangled Banner. I saw a lot of comments on social media. I'm out. That's it. Never going to go to another baseball game or watch another baseball game again. And then I found out pretty quickly they didn't take a knee at the Nationals-Yankees game during the anthem. Every single player stood respectfully during the Star-Spangled Banner. That's the takeaway. Taking a knee during a Morgan Freeman video and holding a black ribbon of unity, as the players did, was before the national anthem. And then for the anthem, they all rose and they stood respectfully for the Star-Spangled Banner. That's a big difference. And I don't know that a lot of people know the difference. I think people saw that image. And I know there was another game and there were a couple players. We're going to see people taking a knee, and you'll get to make a decision about how you respond to that. But listen, the president said it last night. Sean Hannity had a one-on-one with President Trump. It was fascinating. I really wish everybody who hates this man would be willing to take 20 minutes of their life and watch the whole interview. I mean, here's the president on the phone from the White House. Sean, of course, is a huge supporter and an advocate of President Trump and conservatism. And it just gives you insights into the way the man thinks.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
4 years ago, 5 years ago, no one had heard the term deep state, much less been convinced that there was such a thing. We see that the threat is keener than ever.
It doesn't matter whether you refer to it as Dwight Eisenhower, one of the greatest presidents of my lifetime, did, as the military-industrial complex.
Okay, y'all. Dennis Prager here. For the Women's National Basketball Association, it is not enough to kneel during the national anthem. They actually walked out during the national anthem. They wouldn't even be present. They staged a walkout. It's not like they didn't walk out until it was done. They walked out when it was played. All of them wearing Black Lives Matter and Remember Her Name insignias or messages on their uniforms. There you go. That'll really make you want to watch a WNBA game, doesn't it? Okay, just thought I'd share that with you. There's a San Francisco Giant player who would not, the only one on the team who would not kneel. And there's a reason. I just can't get on board. San Francisco Giants player cites Christian faith, this is from the Daily Wire, as reason for refusing to kneel for BLM. The only baseball player refused to kneel during a moment honoring Black Lives Matter in Dodger Stadium on Thursday claimed he did so because of his Christian faith. Sam Coonrod, a 27-year-old reliever for the San Francisco Giants, explained his act by saying he only kneels before God, according to TMZ Sports. Coonrod also said that his faith kept him from endorsing the Black Lives Matter movement because of its Marxist political platform. I just can't get on board with a couple things I've read about Black Lives Matter, how they lean toward Marxism. And they said some negative things about the nuclear family. I just can't get on board with that. I mean, that's a courageous guy. Any fallout? Have you followed? Is there any fallout? Is Vegas betting on how long he'll be in baseball? I wouldn't bet on his staying in baseball very long. It's not just that he wouldn't kneel, but that he criticized the Black Lives Movement, which is a Marxist movement. Was it PolitiFact? Yes, PolitiFact wrote that hilarious thing that, not everybody who supports Black Lives Matter is a Marxist, which means nothing. The movement's ideology is Marxist. It was a dishonest column. Now, I know that's shocking that PolitiFact would have a dishonest column. Anyway, you got to salute good people. Most players from the Yankees, Nationals, Dodgers, and Giants who played Thursday took hold of a black ribbon and knelt in honor of Black Lives Matter before their games. Many also knelt. I didn't know many also knelt during the national anthem. I don't know that. I thought they all stood. What am I confusing? Tell me. Yes. Nationals. The Nationals, well, right. Okay, so it said most players from the Yankees, Nationals, Dodgers, and Giants. It says many also knelt during the national anthem. So this is not correct then, the report that I'm reading. Okay, fine. Look, I hope it's not correct. I in fact said it was a victory actually for the country. If you want to kneel before the game, I don't like the fact that politics enters sports to begin with, including my own politics. All right? So that's been destroyed. The joy of the game is over. Like the joy of late night TV is over. I read to you last week. The New York Times chief classical music critic called for the end of blind auditions, which was placed up there so that they don't have bias. You understand? They play behind a curtain. You're a violinist, you want to join the violin section in the New York Philharmonic, you play behind a curtain. They don't know your race, they don't know your sex, they don't know if you're good looking or ugly, they don't know anything. They only know how well you play the violin. And that has been a reason for this vast number of women who have become members of orchestras, because they're terrific instrumentalists. As it should be, by the way. But he's calling for the end. And now let me explain to you in a nutshell. So for your son who went to college or goes to college, or daughter who does, and is becoming incapable of reasoning, and I mean that literally, this might help. The difference between America, the American Revolution, and communism. We believe in equality of rights. The left believes in equality of results. That's a very good way of your explaining a major difference. Since the proportion of members of the New York Philharmonic who are black does not equal the proportion of the citizens of New York who are black, they must. So you drop the standards that you now have in order to do it. Rutgers, as I told you last week, has announced that the Department of English at Rutgers is dropping grammatical standards because they're racist. It's not that a black kid might be speaking English improperly. It is that it is improper to tell a black kid how to speak English. Get it? Send your kid to Rutgers. You're sending them to a place to make you stupid, as I have charged much of my life. Yes, indeed. 1-8 Prager 776. All right. An unhinged. Listen to this from Gateway Pundit. It's another great. Website. You know. Gotta give a shout out to Gateway Pundit. That's Hinderaker's place? What's Hinderaker's? Powerline, another great one. Who's Gateway Pundit? Jim Hoft? The amount of truth on the internet from the conservative sites is really just... It's reading about a different country than if you read the New York Times or watch CNN. It's much more there's much more truth on the right. There's no comparison. Anyway, listen to this. An unhinged lunatic. Did you see this one? The woman who pepper sprayed a couple? Where did you see it? It's all over? An unhinged lunatic has taken mask policing to a new level, pepper spraying a couple who were having lunch. Well, they wrote was. This is probably more correct. Who was having lunch with their puppy at the dog park because they were not wearing masks. The shocking incident at Dusty Road's dog park in San Diego was captured on camera. The victims, Ash O'Brien and her husband, Jarrett Kelly, had taken their masks off to eat their lunch. So this is the woman's report. So this happened today at Dusty Road's dog park in Ocean Beach. This is my husband getting maced by a random old lady. We had our 3-month-old pug with us. We were just sitting down eating lunch and minding our own business. We were not wearing masks because we were eating. You can't wear a mask and eat at the same time. She kept calling us idiots and flipping me off. Then she started saying more stuff, and I told her to leave the park and stop harassing us. She then came right up to our table where we were eating, pointed the mace at me first and got a little on me, and then my husband stepped in and took the entire can. Thank God for the bystander that took this video, because we are going to the police now to press charges. I am sharing this because people need to watch out for this lady in San Diego. Please share to spread awareness. This is me crying hysterically in the background because my innocent husband just got maced for no reason. We want justice. Good. I support you. Something's happening in America. Back in a moment.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Just go back. You've been through living hell. Most of the country, when they found out that there were frogmen behind your house and tons of SUVs and stuff, people like me, and I think this is apart from my political affiliation as a conservative. As an American, I am deeply infuriated and disgusted that in my country, my free America, we would treat citizens this way.
The raid itself was kind of a galvanizing experience, as you might expect, because normally when people are charged with nonviolent white-collar process crimes, the government contacts your lawyer, says, we're going to charge your client, please bring him in, and I would have come in voluntarily. So it was a bit of a mystery. I was expecting a phone call. Instead, I got a visit from 29 heavily armed FBI agents at 6 a.m. in the morning. They arrived in 17 armored vehicles. There was a helicopter overhead, frogmen jumping off off boats in a canal in my backyard. It was just an over-the-top show. My greatest concern at that moment was not for myself. It was for my wife. My wife is hearing impaired. Without her hearing aid, she's totally deaf. So she didn't hear any of this commotion. I see FBI agents storming up to the second story. She wakes up looking down the barrel of 2 rifles. She doesn't know if it's a home invasion. She has no idea what's happened. They don't know she's deaf, so if they shout a command at her and she doesn't obey, I'm afraid they're going to shoot her. That flashed before me, and I yelled up the stairs, be careful, she's deaf, but they didn't really care. Then they actually frog marched her out in the middle of the street in her nightgown and bare feet. She's 73 years old, and she has rheumatoid arthritis, and she's not.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
A Brooklyn woman has been killed over complaining about fireworks. And according to the New York Post, she followed the borough president's lead advice, urging New Yorkers to settle disputes neighbor to neighbor rather than calling 911. So she confronted some people setting off illegal fireworks in her neighborhood, and she was shot and killed. Her mother said she watched the news and she heard it, meaning that she should not call the police when she has a dispute with a neighbor. Quote, it was probably in the back of her mind, end of quote. The borough president of Brooklyn said that people should talk to their neighbors about a, quote, non-violent act, close quote, rather than call the police and risk a, quote, heavy-handed, close quote, police response. The woman's mother said, quote, it's not a good idea. You don't know who you're approaching. These kids are not respectful anymore. They're more ruthless, close quote. One was shot 8 times simply for asking them to take their dangerous display away from a group of playing kids. She was asking them to remove their fireworks from kids because it was too dangerous. And she was shot and killed. So I guess that worked out, huh?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
And that's, of course, the Bari Weiss story. This individual who worked for the New York Times was meant to be a face of bringing in more diverse political opinions. And, of course, what happened? She had to resign because as a Jewish contributor, an employee, she was called a Yes, indeed, everybody. I'm Dennis Prager. I was talking about Exodus and Deuteronomy during the break. Some of you wonder, gee, what does he talk about during the break? It's not always Exodus and Deuteronomy, but it was. The only bright side in its extremely dark period is I've had all this time to finish the 3rd volume of my Bible commentary. It is, I'm a man of, I have a lot of dignity and I preserve others' dignity. So it hurts me. Not hurts me. It's difficult for me, it doesn't hurt, to beg people to do something. I beg you to read the Rational Bible. And it's not for me. It's because that book has the answers, and I prove it. And I have insights to change your life. There are 2 volumes out. 3rd volume's coming out next year. It'll be 5 volumes. It has actually, it's unbelievably difficult, and it's unbelievably rewarding. By the way, can you tell me anything that's easy that is rewarding? Can you think of a thing? What is easy and rewarding? I can't think of anything. It's the way it is. It's called the Rational Bible. Read the reviews on Amazon. There are 1,000 of them on the 2 volumes. All right. Anyway, the whole crisis comes down to that. You have, if you have Judeo-Christian values, you are vaccinated against the cult. Leftism is a cult. Ask parents whose kids are in it. Unfortunately, here might be an example. Sue in Fairfield, California. Where is Fairfield? Fairfield.
Well, just a minute, Dennis. Let me get you off of.
You sound fine, actually. You
Okay, gotcha. Okay, I had to get you up. I'm hanging sheets on the line.
Oh, no, wait a minute.
Fairfield
Wait.
is on I-80 between. What?
Nobody hangs sheets anymore. What do you mean you're hanging sheets?
Oh gosh! And I'm not a greenie.
Should I buy you a dryer?
I have a dryer. We live in the wind. Have you heard of Travis Air Force Base?
Yeah, of course.
Well, that's Fairfield, and that's why they built it.
What does that have to do with hanging sheets?
It's a
Does
wind
that to
belt.
help the planes come in? Oh, you got a
What's
lot
that?
of wind. You got a lot of wind. Okay, fair enough.
Oh God!
All right.
It makes Chicago look like it's beautiful. It's on I-80 between Sacramento and San Francisco.
Oh, that is a beautiful area. You're right.
It
All right.
is.
What's on your mind?
Well, now you're on different topics, but so my dear, oh God, my mother just died very suddenly on Thursday.
I'm so sorry.
90 years old, perfect health except for scoliosis, which was 30 years at least of chronic pain.
Terrible.
So she's already been to purgatory. So hopefully, I'm a Catholic, and so I believe in purgatory.
Right,
so
I got that.
She's been through it. So anyhow, so our son, who just turned 34 on Wednesday, the day before she passed, came down with his wife from Humboldt County. Do you know where that is?
Yeah,
Eureka?
the very north. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. And so he did the 10-year program at Humboldt State. He's not, I would say this kid has more, common sense than the real sharpest knife in the drawer. You know what I mean?
Go on.
But common sense is so much better. I mean, that's me, that's my husband. Anyway. So he came down, to see his Nana. And, Saturday, now back in our patio, it was just he and I. His wife was in the house. Got on Trump somehow, the topic. And I mean, he's one of those with derangement. Trump deranged. Did you see that article in the Wall Street Journal last week, the new pandemic?
Yeah, yep.
Trump derangement?
Yes, that's right.
He has.
Yes.
He has.
So
and
let me ask you, you said he has a great deal of common sense. So would he have spoken like this 3 years ago?
Oh, probably not as bad, you know.
So who did he vote for between Obama and Romney?
Oh, I don't think he voted. He registered at 18 years old. I mean, he was raised in this.
All right. So
ranching.
what I'm trying to establish is, has he changed in the last 4 years?
4 years. No, it's got progressively. Yes, it's got progressively.
All right. So
worse.
why do you speak about his great common sense?
Well, because he used to have it.
He used
you know what
to.
I mean?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, when he was 10, 12, 13, he had more.
So let me ask you, if you asked him between Marxism and capitalism, which do you think is morally superior? What would he say?
Yeah. What would he say? Oh, boy, I'm not sure if he really knows. And he was very good in history, but I'm not sure if he knows exactly what Marxism is.
All right. Listen, if your child at 34, any of you, I'm not obviously addressing Sue alone, but if your child at 34 cannot answer the question between Marxism and capitalism, which is morally superior, either because of ignorance or because of ideology, we have problems. But we do have problems. Anyway, I want you to remember the difference between American values and Marxist values. American values believes in equality of rights, and the left believes in equality of results. The French Revolution believed in equality of results. Anyone who uses the word comrade is the equality of the results crowd. Get it? It's always dangerous when I hear that. Comrade's a bad sign. All right. Let's get a positive call. John in Buffalo, New York. Hello.
Hey, Dennis. How are you?
Okay, thank you.
Good. I'm just giving you a quick call. Hopefully a nice old thought. My son goes to a SUNY school in New York State, but he takes ROTC, and his goal is to be an officer in the Army. And I talked to him the other night. I said, you don't hear about any world news anymore, like Iraq, Afghanistan, the military, things that are going on. And he goes, what I don't hear about is how good our country is, how great our country is. As scientists, doctors, universities, technology, construction companies, you name it, military.
Yeah.
And that's all I just wanted to say,
God bless you. Okay. I got to let you go. We got to take a break. Tell your son that's the issue. To not realize. If you don't recognize goodness, it's because you're not good.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
We're going to be getting back to Mr. Biden in just a second. Some of the things he said about President Trump being racist. It's just unreal. This is a man, Joe Biden, who has lied and said that the NAACP has endorsed him when the NAACP came out and said, "Excuse me, we're a 501c3 corporation. We can't endorse anybody." Oops. Lied about trying to visit Nelson Mandela and getting arrested in his attempt. He said he was with Andrew Young. Andrew Young was the first black ambassador to the United Nations. Marched with MLK, was there when MLK was shot at that motel in Tennessee. And when he was asked about Biden's claim that the two of them attempted to visit Nelson Mandela when Nelson Mandela was imprisoned and that they were arrested in doing so, he said nope, nope, and nope. And I've told you, Biden has for decades talked about how he would organize on Sunday mornings in black churches and strategize how he and others would figure out ways to desegregate restaurants and movie theaters in Wilmington, Delaware. Zero evidence he ever did. Now, why is it people are angry at Rachel Dolezal for lying about being black, but Joe Biden gets a pass for lying about all these things he claims he's done to advance the interests of black people? What it shows you is he thinks of black people as stupid, obviously not capable of investigating these false claims, and, by the way, as props. I'll just show you how much I care, how much I care, how much I care. Never mind my policies are hurtful. Never mind I'm going to oppose choice in schools even though urban parents want that. Never mind I'm going to advocate a bigger and bigger welfare state even though dependencies creates fatherless households. Never mind.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
There are about 700 Uyghurs, mostly women, who are forced to make sneakers for a company that is a long-term supplier for the company that we know as Nike.
Hang on. I don't want anybody to miss this. So there is a slave labor camp where they make sneakers, and that company feeds its products into the factories that make sneakers for Nike, Gordon?
Yeah, this is a Nike supplier. So Nike works directly with a company that maintains what is a camp. It's got high walls, barbed wire, watchtowers, and really looks like a small concentration camp. It is a factory. This company has had a relationship with Nike for over 3 decades. This particular facility makes 8 million pairs of shoes a year, almost all of them for Nike. Nike says in a statement that it doesn't use forced or indentured labor, but indeed we know that it does, because Washington Post reporting from both March and February of this year, after Nike's statement on this subject, shows that the Uyghur women were transported there against their will. They cannot leave.
Explain for those who aren't familiar, who are the Uyghurs and why are they such a threat to the communist dictatorship in Beijing and to Xi Jinping?
Uyghurs are Turkic people. In other words, they're not the same racial stock as the majority ethnic group in China. They speak their own language, got their own culture, and they have their own religion.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
I'm relatively calm. I had a rough night last night when I saw all the baseball players at the Nationals-Yankees.
Hi, everybody. Dennis Prager here. A lot of the news that I have gotten from Portland has been because of this man, Andy No, NGO, who for some masochistic reason appears to be living there. Andy, if you recall, had been hit. Why don't you recount, before we go on about Portland today, what happened to you when you were injured?
Sure. Thanks for having me on, Dennis. In June of 2019, I was severely beaten by a mob of Antifa militants at one of their riots. And for some time now, going back years, I've been trying to warn the public as best I can through my writings and videos about this violence extremist movement and ideology that is gaining steam. And unfortunately, those warnings weren't heeded, and we find ourselves in the current situation where not only is Portland now in 8 weeks of daily violent protests and riots, but you see these strategies and tactics and ideology exported to other cities over the weekend as well, such as in Aurora, in Oakland, and other cities.
How are you now?
So it's been just over a year since that beating. I am mostly recovered. I still have some cognitive issues. I think what some people may not be aware, because the beating was relatively quick, but there were so many people involved and they were beating me on the head. It caused me to have a brain hemorrhage. So for a year now, I've had various forms of therapies to address the cognitive challenges that arose from that injury.
Well, for whatever it's worth, you sound fine to me, but obviously you know better. But I do want you to know that, and I listen to people for a living, so you're sounding fine to me. Thank God for that anyway. One other question. Have any of those who did this been prosecuted or even caught?
Unfortunately, no. And that points to a bigger picture of what's happening in the city of Portland in general, is that Portland police, because of influence from city council, the politics of the city, as well as just the lack of resources, don't investigate left-wing extremism. And Portland is a hotbed of it. In the form of not just organized street violence, but also terrorist attacks. So through my legal counsel, Hamid Dillon, we were suing various individuals that we identified through our own resources. And as you can imagine, it's really hard to carry out investigation without the tools that law enforcement has. And so we're having to go the civil route after identifying some of these people. So that lawsuit was recently filed, and if you listeners want to support that cause, I have a legal fund on the Center for American Liberty.
No, we do want to support it. Say that again. Where to go?
Center for American Liberty.
CenterForAmericanLiberty.com?
Just do a Google of it. It's a new website, so I might have the URL wrong. Yeah, but it'll be the first hit that pops up.
I will donate. That's how strongly I feel. Thank you very much. You're welcome very much. Thank you very much for what you put yourself out there. So you do know who these people are? You've identified them?
Some of them. So fortunately, there were photographs and videos taken of at least half of the attack, and some of them were partially masked or unmasked, and there was a lot of attention on what happened, obviously, and people reached out and gave tips, and we followed up with it. So that's how, not everybody is being held accountable, but the few that we've been able to identify.
And why did they beat you?
They beat me because my messaging has been consistent in that I'm calling out their extremism for what it is. It's people who have an anarchist communist ideology who are working to destabilize the government with the goals of regime change. And that might sound kind of crazy, but you look at now what they're doing. There's a reason why they attack government buildings and institutions. There's a reason why they try to kill law enforcement. They see the officers as the bulwark between them and carrying out their ultimate agenda.
All right, we'll be back in a moment. Andy No, NGO is the spelling. Center for American Liberty. Let's donate now. In the meantime, I want to remind you of an important product. It's the only FDA-accepted product that includes OEA, the naturally occurring molecule that helps you feel full faster. Burn stored fat while reducing calorie intake. In other words, it tells your brain you're full. People eat too much. It's a big part of the weight problem in America and health problem. RidUZone.com, up to 65% off your order with the promo code Dennis, RIDUZone.com.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
About 1.4 million Americans applied for unemployment benefits once again last week. The new data just released. It is, of course, a discouraging sign. Workers have now filed more than 52 million initial jobless claims since layoffs spiked in mid-March, according to the New York Post, suggesting about a third of the American labor force has been out of work at some point during the pandemic. Lawmakers are still trying to hash out what to do, whether to extend that $600 a week boost to weekly unemployment benefits. It is a tough debate. No easy answers for me. I believe the answer has to be, we got to get people back to work. We have to get people back to work. We have to acknowledge that the virus is here. You have to be careful. And incidentally, back to the lesson of my friend, the president has urged everyone to wear a mask when you are in proximity to other people, if you can't socially distance. I was pretty mindful in my office. We wear a mask. Everybody has a mask in the office. But if I'm in the office with somebody, if I'm in an office setting and I'm 6, 7, 8 feet away, I take the mask off. Well, this particular coworker and friend, the other day, the day that they started feeling symptoms, that morning, I was in the office with them, about, I would say 7, 8 feet away, and I instinctively take the mask off. And that person even said at that time, because they always have a mask.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
You have written it's not safe to keep schools closed. And you've got a paper about it. In the last minute and a half we have, why is it not safe to keep them closed?
Well, children are suffering tremendously in two ways. Number one is the lack of classroom instruction, and the idea that online chats are a substitute for being taught by a teacher is laughable. There's no evidence that that's the case. Students have lost a tremendous amount of learning. They've been set back massively, and that's not just important in terms of them knowing things and their future ability to be effective citizens and so forth. That has enormous health effects as well, because one of the best established relationships we have in public health
Carlin Borisenko, a left-leaning psychologist in New England, find herself at a Trump rally? And how did she react? One of the most powerful videos we've ever put out. The latest video from Prager University. See it at PragerU.com, where we teach what isn't taught. Dennis Prager here, speaking with Andy No. spelled NGO, Center for American Liberty. Was that correct?
Yes, so the website's libertycenter.org. Sorry, one of the issues I have is with memory as a result of the brain injuries from the beating last year.
I have no excuse. I've had that issue my whole life, and I was never injured. So tell us again the name. I want to help you out here. What is the name?
libertycenter.org.
Okay, libertycenter.org. And we can contribute to your fund there, and I want to. libertycenter.org. We got to do that. Okay, now let's talk about Portland today. So I read a piece in the Oregonian, and it was about the riots and the effect on business. And this is the gist of the long article in the Oregonian this weekend that as I understood it. Basically, that it's exaggerated how much has happened because it's only dangerous at night and in a very small area of Portland, and only a few hundred people are involved. That's what I picked up from the Oregonian. A, was my pickup accurate? And B, if it was, is the Oregonian accurate?
The Oregonian is the paper of record in Portland. It's our legacy media here. And its history it does good work, but as with all major media institutions and publications, the younger people that have come to replace it are of the social justice worldview, and it's reflected more in the journalism. So with that particular story, I'm glad it's talking about some of the economic impacts of the riots. I think the bias of the writer shows through in that they're trying to minimize what's happening by describing it as a small area downtown and that it's only potentially dangerous at night. I mean, that type of perspective is essentially what normalizes this. I personally do not accept that in any American city should a area of downtown be a literal no-go zone, not just for police, but for drivers or people who have different views. You can't drive through there. They set up these, they have guards essentially standing on the street to block traffic. And it's also to block law enforcement from going inside. And it's a pretty large area. It's a 3x3 block.
So is this Portland's Chaz?
It is, but it's worse in that during the day it goes away. So, you know, if you work in that area and you work during the day, you can go through and the place is a mess, but otherwise you can still access it. I mean, this is in front of the federal courthouse. It's in front of the county courthouse. It's by City Hall. It's a very important area downtown. It's at night that it becomes a no-go zone. So it is like Portland's Chaz, I would say, but it's worse in that the number of people there are more radical, more extreme.
It's hard to imagine more extreme than Chaz, but it's an odd competition. So a final question. There's something I must admit I can't quite wrap my mind around. Does the average citizen of Portland not find this intolerable?
It's hard for me to gauge the views of the majority because the people who are vocal are very hard left. And by hard left, I'm not just talking about liberal or Democrat. I mean far left.
Communist, basically.
I would say extreme in some ways. They support this. They have sympathies not just for socialism and communism and anarchism. They may actually be supporters of it, and some of them are actually in government positions. I think it's quite appalling that congressman for the area, Al Blumenauer, actually shared the link for how people could donate to one of the Antifa groups who has been supplying
the congressman
people. Mm-hmm. Yes, he was the one. He's the one with the bow tie. He went to Congress who was saying that essentially what's happening in Portland is being exaggerated Democrat politicians are downplaying this because what it reflects on them is that their inability or not having the desire to clamp down on riots in their own cities, and they're blaming it on DHS, on the Trump administration, but that's bogus, because the surge of additional reinforcements to protect the federal courthouse and other federal property didn't happen in Portland until 5 weeks in. So there were already 5 weeks of daily violent protests that were happening before reinforcements came. So they're just using it now as a convenient excuse to put the blame elsewhere.
Can we read you anywhere?
Yes, so I'm published on a number of places. I just wrote my most recent piece is in the New York Post, and you can look up. I write about what the goal of these rioters are.
Oh, good, excellent. I want to get to that piece. Once again, the name of the place that we can help fund your civil suit against those who beat you. What is it again?
LibertyCenter.org. There are several clients there. I'm one of them. My legal fund is called Justice for Andy now.
Andy, keep up the good work and feel better.
Thank you so much for inviting me on and giving me the opportunity to speak.
Yes, you deserved it, to say the least. You have earned it. Did you get that name? What is it again? God, I wasn't even beaten. Center for American Liberty. You know how I'll remember that? CFL. Acronyms help a lot. Wow. Portland, Oregon. Look, Portland, Oregon exemplifies my one of my rules of life, one of my equations. Affluence plus secularism equals boredom.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
A Brooklyn woman has been killed over complaining about fireworks. And according to the New York Post, she followed the borough president's lead advice, urging New Yorkers to settle disputes neighbor to neighbor rather than calling 911. So she confronted some people setting off illegal fireworks in her neighborhood, and she was shot and killed. Her mother said she watched the news and she heard it, meaning that she should not call the police when she has a dispute with a neighbor. Quote, it was probably in the back of her mind, end of quote. The borough president of Brooklyn said that people should talk to their neighbors about a, quote, non-violent act, close quote, rather than call the police and risk a, quote, heavy-handed, close quote, police response. The woman's mother said, quote, it's not a good idea. You don't know who you're approaching. These kids are not respectful anymore. They're more ruthless, close quote. One was shot 8 times simply for asking them to take their dangerous display away from a group of playing kids. She was asking them to remove their fireworks from kids because it was too dangerous. And she was shot and killed. So I guess that worked out, huh?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
And that's, of course, the Bari Weiss story. This individual who worked for the New York Times was meant to be a face of bringing in more diverse political opinions. And, of course, what happened? She had to resign because as a Jewish contributor, an employee, she was called a Nazi by her fellow workers at the New York Times, had to have little axe emojis next to her name on their internal messaging system. Emily, is this a flash in the pan irrelevance, or is the Bari Weiss story, from your point of view as a cultural editor for Federalist, indicative of a far larger problem?
This is a much larger problem, and it's something that we used to sort of think of as a canary in the coal mine every time something like this happened. But we're way beyond
live
that
video
point.
streaming on Town Hall TV, as well as our website. If you want to watch the show, not just listen, go to townhall.com and click on the Town Hall TV button.
All right, everybody. I'm looking up a way to donate to Andy No here. It's on the website, though. Is that correct? We put it up? And on the IM? Bless your soul. Okay. libertycenter.org/PF Justice for Andy. Okay. Go to my website and we got to help the good guys, folks. Remember, 3 types of good people: those who fight, those who help the fighters, and those who do nothing. Please don't be in the third group. Help Andy No. NGO. Yes, indeed. Let's see here. Okay. Yeah, Tyler in Portland. Hello.
Hey, Dennis, how you doing?
I'm okay, thank you.
Awesome. I'm from Portland, Oregon. I live in LA now, but I spent my whole life up there. And the reason that people are just kind of accept this whole thing that live outside of downtown is because they're used to it being weird. They're used to Portland protesting all the time and, you know, having naked rallies through the street and destroying things every once in a while, you know, and pretty much they just kind of accept it. I call my friends every day up in Portland, and they're talking about, you know, how I mean, you don't have to go very far nowadays to hear about the news, but people are so used to it, they just kind of live around it, and they just don't go downtown.
How does downtown function? I mean, there are businesses there. They have to sell products.
Exactly. Well, from what I understand, a lot of businesses have been closing because of the violence that's happened there and the looting. When Trump first got elected, there was a lot of destruction downtown. And
so, again, though, and maybe there just isn't an answer. You're explaining that people are used to this, but why Portland? Why does it breed this criminal element?
Well, that's a good question. I think Portland attracts a lot of people. You know, there is a big homeless problem there that's been growing for like the last probably 10 to 15 years.
All right, thank you. I'm going to look into that aspect. All right, everybody. Dennis Prager, wishing you a wonderful day. I'll see you tomorrow.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio.